Record and go live. See, this is where it always screws. Can you still the ad spot still, Randy?
Yep. Yes, I do.
Oh,
Yep.
that worked better than I thought.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right.
I'll go ahead and check. Do you want to go ahead now and check the
Yep, we're live. You got
Facebook?
the ad spot. You got the ad spot up. We're live.
Okay, good
Hey,
deal.
everybody, you're on Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. Those who don't know, I'm Teddy, and the other gentleman that does not wear a tie is Randy, and our special guest today is Lee Garrity. We'll introduce you to him momentarily. We want to first thank our sponsors. Blackwell Captive Solutions. Is your healthcare plan your biggest spend? Do you want more power and greater transparency with your health plan? If you're self-insured, you need to reach out to Blackwell Captive Solutions because they can help you equalize the playing field so that your cost is not based on what the insurance company wants you to charge. Rather, Blackwell will help you track every dollar and find the best way to get the best value out of those dollars. Boom, Randy, let me introduce myself to the group and then I will hand off to you, buddy.
All right.
So, hey, for those who've never met me, I'm hiding today in upper western Montgomery County, Maryland. Don't ask me where, I can't tell you because of the law. But I'm Teddy. I'm a LinkedIn strategist, trainer, and coach. My purpose is to help business professionals and those who are in career search figure out how to use LinkedIn as a business tool. Love doing workshops, seminars, webinars. We do YouTube videos, answer questions on Quora, and Randy knows, and our recurring audience knows that I'll stand on a street corner and proselytize the value of LinkedIn.
I'm going to try to spell that, Teddy. Proselytize.
Is it proselytize? Oh, see, I can't even say it.
We'll have to get our crack research staff on that one. So, hey, Randy Wooden. Yeah, Randy Wooden with Goodwill Industries of Northwest North Carolina, director for our professional center based here in Winston-Salem. I have clients all over the country, but mostly here in the Triad. So if you or maybe somebody you know is job hunter, we're seeing more layoffs now, actually. And so there's unfortunately, that trend is probably likely to continue. So if you know somebody or maybe yourself that is in a job search, reach out, find me on LinkedIn. We'll get you on the calendar. I'm happy to help, and we're free. So you can't beat that either. But every week I get together with Teddy Burriss. We started this thing 3 years ago, almost to the day. Unbelievable. So he's tolerated me and vice versa. We've lasted longer than most marriages, Teddy.
We have, buddy. But we should celebrate this one day.
I think we will. Lee Garrity joins us. Lee is the city manager for the city of Winston-Salem. That's a big job. There's about 250,000 people running around here just in the city. So we're going to dive into some topics. Teddy will keep an eye on the chat. So if you have comments or questions for Lee, put them in the chat area. Teddy will keep an eye on that. Some of the things we're going to talk about today. For example, how does what a city manager does on the job differ from what a mayor does? I thought the mayor ran the city. I was wrong. I'm going to find that. Lee's laughing. It's a 24/7 gig for Lee. And by the way, Lee's going to be retiring before a whole lot longer. So I'm glad he took some time out to join us today. But also how COVID has impacted how government works, how it operates. We'll kind of get some behind the scenes of how city government differs from county government, and if we have questions or issues, and how those two work together to try to be a seamless operation. And that's, again, not easy, but we'll cover those topics and a few more, some surprises he's run into in his years here, and also some things that maybe just haven't quite panned out the way that maybe he'd hoped coming in. And also we'll get him to dust off the old crystal ball, look ahead to the future, and kind of see what's happening here on our political landscape. So lots to cover today, but Lee, if you would, why don't you introduce yourself in a little bit more detail?
Well, first, thank you, Randy and Teddy, for having me. I appreciate you asking me to join this. I look forward to this conversation. As you said, I'm Lee Garrity. I'm the Winston-Salem city manager. I've been doing this for a good 17 years, and I've been with the city almost 33 years. So been here a long time, enjoy this, love this community, and love trying to help move the needle to improve the quality of life. That really what government is about. Our bottom line is trying to stay out of people's ways, citizens' ways, except trying to improve their quality of life.
Improve the quality of life.
Mhm.
So I always ask the why question. So no exception here. You've been at this job a long time and you've had a good, long and successful career. What's your why? Is it a series of events, a single event? Help us understand that.
How I got into this profession.
Yeah.
You know, early on in my when I was years ago in school, I was interested in business, but I was also interested in government. I thought, well, is there a way to kind of combine the two? I spent some time just out of school working in the federal government, and I realized very quickly that that the federal government is very, very far distant from citizens. I mean, that is it is a different world. And when they talk about inside the Beltway in DC, it literally is inside the Beltway.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided I wanted to go into local government. Went and got my master's while I was working up there at night. I got a master's in local government. Really had a mentor who was a really good former city manager from Alexandria, Virginia, who kind of just motivated me that, you know, go into local government where you can drive that road that you just widened, or you can see that neighborhood that's that now is much safer for that single mom to have to raise their children. And that's kind of what motivated me. And so I was fortunate enough to get a job here in the budget office 33 years ago and stay here and work my way up.
So here you are. And again, if you have comments or questions, Teddy, you'll keep an eye on the chat box. So put them in there. All right, so let's get right to it then. This whole idea of the mayor runs the city. How does what you do differ from what Mayor Joines does? So why don't we kind of break that apart a little bit and help folks understand your role in the government?
Yeah, and now, first of all, Mayor Joines is a great mayor. I mean, I've been really blessed. He is just I put him up against any mayor I've ever met.
He's been there as long as you have, really, roughly.
Longer, because he worked for the city. So he's been here 50 years, counting out that worked here. But
I mean, as mayor, though, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, he's been mayor over 20 years. But you know, we operate, as do all the cities, major cities in North Carolina. We operate on what's called a council manager form of government, and under that form of government, which is different than if you look at, say, at Atlanta or DC, which has a strong mayor form of government. Under a council manager form of government, the mayor and the city council, they hire just the manager and the city attorney. That's it. But they set policy, and then they look to their manager to carry out that policy. They look to their manager to hire everybody. Occasionally, unfortunately, have to fire people and carry out those policies. So it functions a little differently than those other cities where the mayor is actually doing the budget, or like say in Atlanta, where the mayor's doing the budget, the mayor's hiring the police chief. But it's a real blended approach, because our mayor has real strong leadership skills, and so even though he doesn't have a lot of legal power, he doesn't even vote unless there's a tie at city council, but he has a lot of leadership power and credibility. So he leads the direction of the council along with the really good council members. And it's my job to make sure we carry out those policies. And if I don't do it well, at any given time, they can change managers. So, but yeah, the day-to-day operations, it's kind of like your COO, chief operating officer, falls on the city manager.
Yeah. So budgets, you're personnel, you've got operations, you got HR,
you got budgets, personnel, police department. I mean, that's always, if you talk about the county, the counties, one of the big changes between the county and the city is, the county has an elected sheriff. So the county doesn't, other than funding it, they're not really directly involved in law enforcement. Whereas on the city side, I have to pick a police chief, and with a lot of input from the community and the council. But and that's police is a very, very important thing. Public safety is to a community.
Yeah, especially here lately with see a lot of the gun violence, and so I mean your job's I've got to think is also a political one in that you've got to be mindful of the optics of things, and as you go about your day to day.
My goal always is not to be political, but to understand. I work hard to understand the politicians, understand where they're coming from. Every elected official I've ever worked for, and I've worked for a lot of them, they all want to do good. They all want to do something for their community, but they have different ideas of how to get there. And because of our form of government, they can't do anything for the community unless they get elected and reelected. So it's always going to be, as it should be, they're going to be responsive to the people who elect them. And so.
Yeah, I see we have some comments. Ted, I don't know if you wanted to work those in now or.
Yeah, I'm going to leave Dale's question for a little later, maybe. But Don's question is a good one that I think that is pertinent at this time. Lee, how much do you get involved in, or does the city, someone else in the city get involved with introducing our youth to what is going on in our city government?
It's getting better.
Okay.
In fact, I just did, along with elected officials, just did an in-service program with middle school and high school teachers to talk to them about the role of local government to help them. It's gotten better. We have city council has a youth advisory council. So we have young people from one or two from every high school. And they're very, very active. And sometimes they have better ideas than we do, honestly, because they're young. So we do that. We still struggle, I think, to tie young people from the school system into a career track with the city. And the school system, they're doing that. They're trying to even do that themselves for their own employment, to hire people. But we could do better there. But yeah, I meet regularly with the superintendent and others, so I think we get along fine. But there could be more integration for young people in our school system.
Yeah. Talking about education and the dollars to fund education. You run the city, so the Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools, how are they funded? Are they also getting dollars, federal dollars, grant dollars? How do we fund the educational process in Winston?
Yeah, in North Carolina, the schools are funded by a combination of the state, primarily state funding, and then by the county. So the county, Forsyth County, provides funding. They pay for the buildings. That's why you have the bond referendums. They provide for a teacher supplement, and that varies from county to county. Some are higher than others. And then, of course, the school system got a lot of federal money as part of the COVID bill 2 years ago. But the city, typically cities are not involved in direct funding of the schools. Part of that issue is because every city taxpayer is also a county taxpayer. So we're all paying county taxes anyway. So there's that equity issue of paying twice if you funded it. But so occasionally we do certain things to cooperate with the school system, but not a lot of direct funding. Now we have this year really stepped up in funding using federal grant money. First time ever we have stepped up. The council stepped up, and we are funding child care and pre-K initiatives, which I think are very vital. And a lot of cities have already done that. I think they're for our future, if we're ever going to deal with poverty and youth violence, you've got to start with all the studies show that universal pre-K is a real wise thing to do. So the city is stepping up there to do that, but typically we don't do a lot direct funding with the school system.
Yeah, Teddy, what you got?
So Nick is listening to us on LinkedIn. Nick had a question. He goes, he has a business in Winston, and he wants to know what's the best way to meet with the right people in the city maybe the city manager, to find ways to work with you and the council. What are ways of working together with you and the council as a business?
I guess it kind of depends what the business is.
Yeah.
You know, we've got a business development department that our development director Ken Millett runs. But yeah, I would tell him to reach out to me, email me, and I can hook him up with the right people for that conversation. Whether it's, you know, it depends where if he's looking. A lot of times, small businesses have challenges just with our permitting, all that process, all the bureaucracy. So we always want to try to help folks with that. But the other thing I would encourage any business to do is to get involved with Greater Winston-Salem Inc., formerly known as the Chamber. We have a very close relationship with them as well. But businesses, particularly small business, is vital to our future. I mean, you're not going to see, I don't think you're going to see a lot of large corporations moving in. So it's small business is really what we've got to continue to nurture and grow.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, so you mentioned Greater Winston-Salem Inc., Mark Owens, and of course they're in a new facility now. And you work closely with them. So if a business is thinking of coming here, I guess is Mark and his staff, are they the initial tie, and they bring you in to talk about the facilities and infrastructure and that kind of thing? For both businesses that are thinking of coming here, as well as businesses that want to expand, they're already here. Okay.
Mark and his staff, Laura Lee is the economic development director. They're just phenomenal. They're a phenomenal group, and they will. They're very creative, and they will push. Both they also are, you know, both the city and the county contract with them to do that. So they bring the, you know, for most of our economic development assistance, the county is, you know, we do it together. So the county and the city both provide funding.
I was going to ask you too, you mentioned about the county. Dudley Watts is the county manager. You are the city manager. So you're not the mayor, but you're also not the county manager. So help us understand the mosaic here, and Lee, where you fit in and how you engage with Dudley, who runs the county.
Yeah, Dudley and I have both a professional and a personal relationship. You know, professionally because of the business, but also personally because there are very few people in the world who are managers. So, you know, it's a unique profession. So you share that. But I mean, we get together regularly. Plus, we also communicate a lot. Oftentimes, citizens, you know, residents, they don't. Nor should they have to really figure out this is a city function, this is a county function, who takes care of this road. I mean, it is a matrix of who does what, and it gets confusing at times, as well as the school system and the sheriff. We throw all that into the mix. So we refer stuff back and forth on a regular basis and try to keep that straight. But we do work for different political boards. So, and we'll joke occasionally when we have to when there's some kind of political dispute between the two boards, which is normal. Sometimes we have to stay a little down low on meeting together for a little while there. So
now Dudley's been on the job. Yeah, good.
I'm also envisioning that because you two know each other personally as well as professionally, and I'm just joking here that there are times when you say, you know, Dudley, you owe me, you take this. Now, absolutely. So he's a little jealous. His retirement is a year out from mine. And I think he's a little jealous that I'm beating him out the door. So
and we're gonna tackle that in a while here before we let you go today to see what's on the to-do list, if anything, and when that all takes place. So so we're gonna cover it. You mentioned roads briefly, and now there's an issue. And I lived in Rhode Island for years in Ohio, and roads there were infamous for the potholes due to all the frost lifting, the freezing, and all that. And the pothole situation here isn't nearly as bad. I can attest to that. But it's all in what you know, and that's one of the things. The trash pickup and these daggum roads, and I'm sure you hear that all the time. So help us understand how these roads, what's the priority? You've got the 74 Beltway, you've got other things going on.
Yeah.
Do you get your hands dirty with that, or is that more of a county thing, or how do you really sort all that stuff out?
The roads is pretty much all city and or state. The county doesn't do roads at all.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I get my hands dirty on that. In fact, we've got a really infamous project that's been Metal Arc Road widening, which is, I mean, 5 years behind schedule, and for many reasons. But I literally am out there every week myself checking on that, because of the concerns of both the residents and the schools that are out there. Again, like, local government is the closest thing to a citizen. So whether it's that road you drive on, or making sure your sewer system works, or the police will come. And people worry so much about the federal government, but the local government is what touches you. With the local elected officials are the ones that raise your taxes or affect the quality of your schools. I mean, local government is really where the rubber meets the road, day in and day out. So streets, roads, it's a little complicated because we get some of the roads, a lot of roads in the city are maintained by the city. And then some of the major roads, like your Silas Creek Parkway and Peters Creek Parkway, are state maintained roads. If they're city maintained, we get a share of the gas tax that we all pay every time we go to the pump, to help pay for the maintenance of those roads. If they're state, we don't, but then the state maintains those roads. But that's another one where a citizen calls, they don't care, they just want that pothole fixed or whatever it is. It's a problem. Right now, our biggest challenge is getting workers. We have that we probably have a 35% vacancy rate in our traffic field operation, which is streets, the division that does that. And because it's post-COVID, has been a real change in the labor supply for everybody, including the contractors. The contractor doing Metal Arc is, I think he's got 25% vacancy rate.
Oh Lordy.
So,
yeah. Teddy had
So two things, Lee. I'll go check the openings of the city, because I would love to be that dude who rides around when I'm using simple words here, that meter guy with the chalk, where he chalks cars and makes sure that I want to be that guy, but I'm
that's
joking.
a cool job.
Actually, I know who one of them was, because I'd say hi to him on a regular basis, never by doing anything wrong. But here's a question that Don asked, and that is, and this is more about Lee Garrity as a person. Who have you had someone that mentored you or advised you over time to help you become the man you are today?
Wow, there's probably 3 people who mentored me the most in my career. Bill Stewart, my predecessor, who was city manager for 26 years. I mean, he's the one that identified me when I was just a guy in the budget office and
wet behind the ears.
Yeah, and so years and years with him. I also had I was fortunate to work with Dick Janeway, who was the president and dean of the hospital. We did a 2-year citizen efficiency review, and he chaired that. So very brilliant person. So I got a lot of mentoring from him. And then last but certainly not least, all these people are deceased, but Vivian H. Burke, our mayor pro tem, worked directly with her for many years. She was a tough cookie, but she was a teacher always. So she was always teaching things to me, which we're sometimes hard lessons, but good lessons.
Yeah, that's a great set of attributes, by the way, Lee. Tough cookie and a teacher.
Yeah.
So,
Randy. Permitting. You mentioned permitting, so I imagine there's a department that people would contact. So what if I don't agree with the permit? I guess am I out of luck, or is there a way for me to argue my case, so to speak? How do you? How does all that work?
Kind of depends on what it is. most of our permitting is based on the state building code, and so there are state rules, and it's difficult to in the state, if it's in the state building code. What we always try to do is figure out, okay, here's what you want to do if you're trying to renovate a building or whatever it is. Let's see how we can make it work. It may not be exactly the way you started with, but is there a way to make it work within the existing building code? It's always a challenge sometimes. One of the most difficult times I can remember one time was when I literally had to turn in a church, because they were a church that were operating out of a close to downtown old building, and they were having a community meeting. A great group, and engaging the community. And I'm in there thinking, this doesn't meet any fire code, and I had to call the fire marshal, and we worked with them for about a year. We gave them about a year, and but eventually it was just too cost prohibitive for them to continue in that building. They had to move. But so those are always tough. But at some point you have to say, well, you got to balance. You're trying to help that church, help that community, but at the same time, God forbid there's a fire. And so
yeah. Now we have a new police chief, William Penn. I think he was in leadership, Winston, a year ahead of me, I think, or 2 years or whatever. So
he's a great guy.
Best class ever. But yeah, so you've known him for some time, right?
Oh yeah, I think the first time I met him was 20 years ago when he was longer, and he was a young sergeant. And but yeah, he's got that combination of just that work ethic, but also the people skills. He's already hit the ground running. He's been going to every roll call, which is not easy because they're around the clock, and been out in the field, and the officers really like him. Community already loved him. And so yeah, he's doing a great job so far.
Hey,
Randy,
yeah, Teddy. That make a note. We need to get him on a show.
Oh, yeah, you need to. Yeah, just send me an email.
I'll ask for the invite, Lee. Thank you.
Yeah, I can at least for a couple months I can still hook you up.
We'll get Bobby Kimbrough in here too. So he's the sheriff is an extraordinary person. Sheriff Kimbrough.
Hey, here's a question from Lisa. Have you noticed the impact of the commercial space occupancy vacancies dropping and the impact that's having around town?
Yes. In fact, we're a little concerned about what it will do to the tax base, with the vacancies. But that hasn't changed yet. But we've got an active effort underway right now, as do a lot of other downtowns, to look at converting a lot of this empty office space. I mean, for instance, the Wells Fargo building next door to City Hall is completely empty. I mean, there is one guy in it
because he can't get out.
Well, he's just, I guess he's the caretaker. But so looking at not Wells Fargo, I'm sorry, not Wells Fargo, the BB&T, the Truist building.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, one over. But we are looking at that buildings like that for adaptive reuse for housing. Lots of cities are doing that now. It's not cheap because they're not designed for housing, so the plumbing and things like that. But I think that is the trend now. I mean, people want to live downtown, and so many people are working remote anyway, but they want all the amenities of downtown. But yeah, there is that significant change. I don't think it'll go back to the way it was pre-COVID.
Yeah, that's the building I worked in when I moved here from Ohio. Was the green glass building?
Green glass building.
Yeah, 1 floor down or 2 floors down from the Piedmont Club. So
which is gone too. Yeah, it's all gone.
Days gone by. Interesting. And Teddy, we're about halfway through. You want to do the halfway? You want to do that now?
Lee, great conversation. Hang tight while I
All
I want
right.
to thank our sponsors for their help. So, hey, you're on Lunch Conversations of Randy and Teddy. Our special guest today is Lee Garrity, the city manager, current city manager, pre-retirement of city manager in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Our sponsor is Blackwell Captive Solutions. Randy and I have known these folks for some time. Carrie and her team are good people. 25 years experience in health insurance business. They're medical stop loss captive for any company that's self-insured, specifically for their health insurance. You need to talk to Blackwell Captive Solutions about how they help you put a shock absorber against your high dollar claims. BlackwellCaptive.com. Let them know that Teddy sent you to talk with them. So cool. So I got Dale has a really cool question, and I like this because this is the kind of stuff that it excites me. A smart city. Any initiative you're a part of, Lee, in the context of I think digitally, electronically, not intelligently, making the city smarter.
Yeah, we have several going on. And I think it's really been elevated by the fact that, with the labor shortage, you've got to think differently. So, we've got our CIO is really kind of heads up our smart city initiatives, the different ones we're looking at. So we've got really pushing cameras. There's just no way law enforcement is going to be able to probably ever get back to the level it was before. So we've got to use technology to help with making the community safe. We've got another major initiative that we're involved in with Winston-Net, which is a community collaborative dealing with the digital divide. And that is really, I'm excited about that one. We put several $1 million into that. And that's using
Lee, let me jump in if I could real quick.
Yeah.
Explain what digital divide is, because some people may not be aware of what
I'm sorry.
means.
Yeah. Digital divide. There is a serious digital divide in every community of the haves and have not. So people everybody has, just about everybody has, even the homeless have cell phones. But as far as high-speed internet access to high-speed internet, there's a huge part of the community doesn't have that, as well as computing devices that really and the training to understand how to use them. And as the world changes, more and more it's all done digitally. I mean, we saw this during COVID with when the school system went remote. How difficult it was in some of our urban areas. In the poverty areas, to get the young people to even connect. School system did really cool things. They went in there with mobile hotspots in school buses, but you still didn't have the kids to connect. But so that digital divide is both the tech, it's both the actual high-speed internet, because the companies that build it really try to build internet, AT&T and others, to where the more affluent people are. That's just what they do because that's where the money is. So that, as well as the whole training divide of young people not knowing how to, and their parents how to really use those systems. So we've got a big undertaking right now, trying to tie our rec centers, our schools, everything together with training and giving out devices to people. So that's just kicked off, but I really think that can make a difference in so many things, because everything is digital these days, honestly. So that's when we're also looking at some really cool, finally trying to go to smart city technology for parking. Our downtown parking is we're really almost in the 1800s right now with coins you put in the meters. And but we're doing the study right now. So whether it's completely going to be digital or a combination, we're looking at that right now to try to go. I mean, it's the smart city technology on parking is. I mean, you can. I've seen where you can actually see. Okay, there's a space on this corner, and it's so. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, there's a lot going on. So.
Yeah, I imagine, and also another topic too that is front of mind, for the mayor, certainly top shelf, aside also from the safety and the crime issue, is affordable housing, and how government can work in conjunction with private enterprise to provide this. So help us understand the city's involvement. There's a lot of development going on downtown. Help us understand the affordable housing, the whole, take it however you want to, whichever direction you want to take it. But that's a big topic for a lot of folks.
Yeah, I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, that there's a growing divide of people not being able to afford housing. And you use that rule of thumb that says, you know, you shouldn't spend more than 30% of your income on housing. We did a study a few years back, and we got a divide of about 14,000 people who can't afford homes, and it's continuing to grow. I mean, if you're having to spend 75% of your income on your rent, what that means is you're foregoing insurance and all kinds of other things. And so, so yeah, we're trying to do that. The only way really to do that is you have to subsidize. You know, you have to work with the developer and provide a subsidy that brings down the cost. For a developer to either sell a house at a lower rate or more typically to provide rents that are affordable. You've got to subsidize their upfront costs. So we've got an aggressive policy on that. We're trying to stay to maybe, you know, around $25,000 per unit as a subsidy, but it all depends on where it is. But yeah, that's critical. I tell you, I try to take things most concerning to me is the violent crime. I mean, the amount of violent crime is at a level I've never seen in my career. And if I had a magic wand, I'd figure out how to fix that. So, I mean, it's last night we had, had to chase somebody. We chased somebody because they were shooting out one vehicle at another vehicle. And, that's routine. And then I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, there are a lot of challenges. And so you're the execution component of this. You've got the mayor and you've got the council folks that give you the guidelines, but ultimately, I mean, the dollars have to be directed somewhere. And so you're given a budget, guidelines on a budget, because the mayor doesn't do the budget. So ultimately you've got to figure out, I've got a limited pie here. How do I divide that thing up? And how does that work into planning, long-term, short-term planning? I mean, it's got to just be a lot of moving parts.
Yeah. I mean, it's the economy, it's tricky to do long-term budgeting because our revenues, it's hard to project them in multiple years because, depending on the economy, they go up or down. But yeah, the budget is the biggest policy document the council adopts every year, because where they spend their money is setting policy, especially when our budget, is, $750 million. So I work with all of them, and our budget director, we work with all the mayor and all the council members right now during budget preparation to try to hear what their concerns are, as well as our departments. And then so we try to come up with a kind of a balancing budget. But budget has three legs. Every budget has three legs. It's services, employee salaries and benefits, and then revenues. So you're trying not to raise taxes much, if not all, because that hurts residents. You're trying not to cut services, and you're also trying to reward and retain your employees. So
good luck with it. You're a good juggler. I mean, I've got to think you juggling skill. Teddy, what you got something there? Teddy, you want to throw in?
Don asked this question, and Don reminded me, because I remember this as well. It's been a while since I've experienced it, but Don said when he came to Winston-Salem several years ago, there were a lot of festivals and street fairs, and they went away with with COVID. What are you hearing or seeing in the context of some of these events coming back?
I think some of them are going to come back. Some of them, like, for years, the city did Rock the Block.
Yeah.
But, we started Rock the Block when there was very little activity downtown. And it was an attempt to get people to, and it was very successful.
Yeah.
What we've seen in more recent years is, with all the success downtown and the restaurants and the bars, they're like, wait a minute, I don't want the streets closed. I don't want that festival because it affects my regular business. So there's been a delicate balance. We work with a partnership on those events, but I think you'll see, a lot of them, Trade Street, a lot of different stuff coming back more this year and next year. And I know we've got a full season both on Trade as well as the jazz series. So you'll see more special events kind of things, but some of the ones that we did to prime the pump probably won't come back.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about challenges, problems, what have you, and putting out fires and planning. And so what are some things you say, hey, we rocked that thing. We did a good job. We did right by folks. What are some things you can really point to that say this thing's working?
I think probably number one, over the last two bond referendums, 14 and 18, City Council put millions and millions of dollars into our parks, quality of life. And we just cut a ribbon on phase 2 of Salem Lake the other day. Wasn't long ago, we cut the ribbon on Winston Lake. We're doing another ribbon cutting for phase 2 at the quarry. We're getting ready to cut a ribbon up at Long Creek. We bought the old golf course up there and are converting that. So I think those things we've really rocked, because we were really, really behind on having quality recreation that people want now. Passive, they want walking trails, they want pickleball. So pickleball is hot, and so we really stepped that up, and I if you haven't been out to Winston Lake, you should go out there and see that now. It's unbelievable. And so yeah, I think that's one that we've really, really, really rocked. And I tell you, we've also really kind of changed in many ways, our service model going to, and I'm proud of it. There's always challenges, but we went to a 311 service model where, one call does it all with citizen service. It's never going to be perfect, but it's much, much better than the old days when you had to, you used to have to go in the phone book and there was the blue pages and there were dozens of numbers to pick up.
The blue pages. I forgot about those.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
So Leah, in the context of pickleball, now Lisa's asking about the noise with pickleball. I don't know if I've ever played pickleball where we were too overly noisy, maybe. But my question to you, Lee, is: are you a pickleball enthusiast, a pickleball, attendee, or are you working towards some type of amateur, level here?
I've never played. I played tennis, but I haven't. Maybe retirement. I'll take it up. I was just talking to some of my younger staff, much younger, who've taken it up. I said I thought it was for old people, but apparently not. So, it is so popular. And I guess you don't have to run around as much as tennis, right? So
yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, you had some other talking points. I want to at least work a couple of those in. And if folks have comments or questions for Lee, put them in the chat. We'll see if we have time for them. You mentioned, and you've touched on this earlier, I think, with technology and so forth, but how COVID has impacted government and how it's evolved since COVID.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
COVID, it was just challenges, but it also had a lot of good things. So it forced us to use technology the ways we should have been doing. There's so many things. For sometimes, for community meetings, to be able to have them remotely where anybody and everybody can participate, and it's recorded and they can look back on it instead of having to drive to City Hall. There are so many things that I think COVID has it pushed us to think out of the box, which is good. I think, something else it really did, which is, I think, part of the labor shortage, is we all grew up in that kind of that Puritan work ethic. And so, so many of us, we live to work, not work to live. And we've seen that change where the labor force is like, hey, I don't want to work 60 hours a week. I don't want to, even if you pay me overtime, I value quality of life. And that, I think that overall that's probably good for the health of the community and the country. But it's a big change.
Yeah.
You mentioned also another point was the residents' quality of life priorities, and that's kind of what you're touching on. And I think also, if you had to piggyback that with all the new parks and the recreation that you're coming around, so sounds like you've got your ear to the ground with that.
Hey, I tell you that my
Mhm.
wife takes care of our 18-month-old grandson pretty much full time during the day, and she took him to one of our playgrounds that we just renovated the other day, and she's a tough judge, and she came back and said, "This is really really nice. This is this." There was a lot of people were using the playground. They wanted to know when the splash pad was going to get turned on. I said, "Not till May 1." But so yeah, I mean, it really those are the kind of things that make you feel good about um, what we do, and we should be very serious about taxpayer money, that we're trying to help people with what we spend it on.
So you've been on the job a while now. How many years you been there? Ballpark?
I've been with the city 33,
Sure.
almost 3 years. I've been manager. I've been in this chair for 17. So
Okay.
good
So
while.
So you've seen a lot over the years. What were maybe, if you had to look back, I'll call them maybe not surprises, but things that you encountered that maybe you didn't really expect to the level that they were, whether good or on the maybe negative side? What are some things that you said, wow, this is different? Yeah.
I would tell you forced annexation, which was something that we no longer
Mm-hmm.
do. Going through forced annexation or involuntary annexation, growing up thinking, well, this is good government. We're just expanding it. And then having to deal firsthand with, and I understand it now, citizens saying, "Hey, wait a minute, I don't want to pay these taxes. I live on the fringe of the city. I still have a little land. Why can't I continue to shoot my gun off in the backyard because now I'm in the city?" I think all that was trying to blend that for the good of all was a big surprise for me that I didn't go in thinking about. I think, and then I think overall, just the public safety end of, really over time, really getting an appreciation for how difficult those jobs are, how difficult it is to, get up every day and put on a vest, to pull just a simple traffic stop. You never know. Or our firefighters who have to run into a burning building, or all of the horrific, medical calls that they see. So yeah, really kind of get an understanding for that. It's the appreciation for what our employees or some of our workers in who work out. When pipes freeze in the winter and it's 10 degrees outside, and they're out there fixing them. With sleet and snow. I mean, that was something that, that I really have a much stronger appreciation for than I did when I was just a budget guy. So,
Any fun stories for us looking back?
I probably,
that you can tell, that you can share,
share. Probably not many of them. I don't know. Everything. There's so many stories over time. I think, again, elected officials all care about the city. They have different ideas about how to do it and who's going to pay for it, but they all care about the city. I think I can't think of one specific story. I can tell you this: when the former Mayor Kavanaugh, I'll tell you a fun story. Former Mayor Kavanaugh, he was an interesting mayor. I was just an assistant manager, and he decided he was going to go to there's an International City County Manager Association. It was a national meeting in Portland, Oregon, and Bill Stewart, who was my boss, was getting sworn in as the president of the whole national association. And so the mayor was invited to see that, and I was already going to the conference. And so I never forget, we're getting ready to get on the plane, and Bill Stewart said, I was a young guy, and he said, your job is to make sure you take care of the mayor, and I don't see him the whole time I'm out here. But that's what I did, including the mayor and I drove up to as high as you could up Mount Hood in a car. So anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm sure you're
Yeah.
sitting on more good stories. What about any regrets that you have looking back? Maybe woulda, coulda, shoulda. Any looking back on your career and your time here that maybe could have done things differently had you had the knowledge. Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
I think early in my career as city manager, I probably initially had a hard time trying to balance everybody's needs, and was probably looked pretty much too hard on my staff versus driving forward for what the elected officials want. And I think I've learned over the years you got to balance all that. So yeah, I would say that, but nothing real specific. So
Yeah, Teddy, you had did you want to work a comment?
Don asked, and it is in line with the conversation we just had, any stories you have. And you already told me, Lee, that you're in the same office your predecessor was in. And I asked you if there were any skeletons in the closet, and you giggled a little bit. I don't know if the giggle's the right word, but so I'm assuming you're going to leave a few there as well, but put that aside as I satirically share that.
right.
Do you have a thought for putting your experiences down on paper / book?
The joke in my profession is that there's so many that you forget half of them by the time unless you write them down as you go.
Yeah.
The great thing about this job is it's so varied. So, I mean, you have 30 different departments doing 30 different things. So any given day, you're, it could be a sanitation issue. It could be something with the elected officials. It's so varied that I probably won't write anything down. So
I got to ask you, what's a typical day? I mean, I've got to think are you on call and basically 24? It sounds like.
That's the thing about being, if you're a city manager or county manager, your office is your entire community. So you don't, I mean, yes, you leave the office, but you're driving down the street, you see a pothole, you see a trash can getting picked up, so I mean, the whole community is your office. People come up to you. My neighbors love to come up to me. And we because of our crime issue, and we do notify council and myself and senior staff anytime we have a significant incident, which is every night. So at least once, usually twice a night, I'll get a call from the police department. So you really have to leave town to disconnect from it because, I mean, it's all around you.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, in my case, my daughter is an assistant district attorney here in town, and she married one of my police officers. So it's really hard. My wife goes crazy at the dinner table when they come. So
there's a TV show out there about you, I think, Lee. I can't, what's it called?
I don't think I look like Tom Selleck in Blue Blood.
Something you wanted to mention was why come to Winston-Salem? Why come to work for Winston-Salem? In other words, why work in your area of government? I assume, right? That's what you're talking about.
We are trying to recruit people at all levels, and I mean, I think Winston-Salem, if you look at this community, number one, it's very affordable compared to Raleigh or Charlotte. I mean, our cost of living, our cost of housing is much lower on every level, and so it's and our quality of life. We don't have the congestion. We don't have that. You can still get anywhere in 15 minutes, pretty much. You can't get around the block in Charlotte and Raleigh in 15 minutes. It seems like, but so the quality of life is good. The climate's good. I think it's a great place to, and I think the culture here is good. We really, we have an elected body that is very cooperative. There's not any, some cities are a lot more difficult, but we're not. So I mean, it's a great place to work, and I hope more people will consider coming here and doing a career. We have state has a great pension if you make it 30 years. So.
Yeah. Well, and you've
missed that.
and retirement is out there on the horizon for you. So let's talk that briefly. What when are you going to be stepping down, and what's on the to-do or the honey-do list at this point that you know of?
Yeah, I announced at the end of in January that I was going to retire at the end of June. Promised the mayor and council that I would help them get a new police chief, which we did, and then get through the budget, which I'm working on right now. So
yeah,
but yeah, that I'll be retiring in June. I don't have any real short-term career plans. I will do something after a while, but for a while, I'm just going to do some. I got some work to do on my own house, and a much bigger list for both my daughter's homes that they've given me for things to do to fix. So I like fixing.
Oh, well, you
stuff.
just publicly stated you're going to do all that. So just
oh, they know. They got it on a Google task list for me. So, but anyway.
Let's take about a minute or so. Normally, we ask our guests for takeaways, things that we want them to remember, and I think you've hit on a lot of that. So I'm going to pivot this time and just say, if you had a crystal ball to project the future, to see into the future, or if you want to take the magic wand, like you said about dealing with crime issues, take it how you like. What do you see going forward?
Well, I think Winston is a. We're not going to grow at the level of a Charlotte or a Raleigh, but I think over time, and we've seen a lot of people relocating here more and more. I'm amazed at my people locate here who are work remote but choose to live here. I mean, it seems like half my neighborhood now is like that. But so I think Winston will continue to. It will be a slow growth. We're not going to be rapid, but at the same time, I think the quality of life will continue to be better and better. In the triad, in this both the weather, the mountains, the coast is in between. I think they're good things on the horizon for Winston-Salem.
Lee Garrity, the city manager for Winston-Salem. Lee, thanks for joining us.
Right.
Teddy, were there any other comments that you wanted to throw in there?
No,
I don't know if there are or not.
Nothing really big other than
Okay.
the fact I was just doing some research on city property, trying to find a good place to put a pickleball court. But we'll figure that out.
On a whole lot smaller level, Lee, I'm on the Clemens Planning Board.
Oh, you are?
So yeah, so I get to kind of get the bird's eye view of things as they're brewing and all that, and I can only imagine times 100 or maybe 1,000 what you and your team have to deal with.
Have you been on there a while? How long? No.
I took over somebody's term. They had to bail, and so I'm actually up for review. Teddy, I'm up for review, but up for review in June. Actually, his term expires, so it's only been since.
Because I know in the past they've had some controversial cases with developers, so maybe you missed all that. So.
No, the Waterford one, I was there for that one. So yeah. So there's that. Hey, just a real quick thought. Teddy and I share a brief story, and then we talk about next week's show coming up. So I moved down here from Ohio. I had never lived here before, came down, interviewed, and I tell people you can fit in most anywhere if you're just a decent person.
That's right.
But I got to say, over and above all that, I love this place. It's a nice place. I had an opportunity, and I've had other opportunities over the years to maybe have gone somewhere else. But to all the things you said, quality of life, transportation, and, we see things, safety, but you go to any city of any size. Yeah, nobody's immune to that stuff. It's all around us. But if you want to enjoy life, you want to enjoy people, whether it's the scenery and the ocean or the mountains, it's there for you.
Yeah, that's why I'm staying.
Yeah, I love it here. Yeah. So it's a good deal. Teddy, you got a quick one? Anything you want to throw in there?
No, let me set up next week, and then we'll do our ad spot. So next week's gonna be a little different. And so those who we have a die-hard audience that comes with us every week. Please show up next week because it's going to be a little bit different. That's all I'm going to tell you. And I can promise you it'll be a lot of fun. It'll be full of some hilarity and stupidity, and it'll be worth showing up. And we may actually pull some people from the audience into the conversation. And Lee, thanks a lot for coming. Appreciate it. I'm fortunate that I've been around this town for over 30 years myself, and I got a ton of friends all over the city and who work for the city. So that's I don't live in the city, but I refer to Winston-Salem as home for me. So
absolutely.
yeah.
All right. Well, it's good. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you very
Lee,
much.
take care of yourself. Have a good one. We'll talk to you later, and good luck in retirement.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. So, hey,
right.
remember, Blackwell Captive Solutions is our sponsor, and we're grateful for all that they do to help us grow the show. Go find them at blackwellcaptive.com. Go check out burrissconsulting.com and look for the show notes. We have the show notes out there in the video and the YouTube video, and the podcast is out there every week. It'll be a little late getting out there this week because I'm traveling. So thank you to our audience. Randy, good seeing you, buddy. I'll talk to you later.
All right.
All right, bye.